In a remote village nestled deep within the vast forests of northern Canada, the winter of 1972 was particularly brutal. The villagers, tough and resilient, had learned to coexist with nature's harshest elements. However, that winter brought more than just bitter cold and heavy snowfall. It brought a sense of dread that crept into the hearts of everyone. The village elder, an old man named Thomas, often spoke of a legendary pack of wolves that roamed the surrounding wilderness. These wolves, he claimed, were larger and more cunning than any normal pack. They were said to have eyes that glowed like embers and fur as black as the deepest night. Many dismissed his tales as the ramblings of a superstitious old man, but those who had lived in the village long enough knew better than to entirely disregard his warnings. One frigid evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the full moon began its ascent, a young farmer named Mark was returning from checking his traps. The forest was eerily silent, save for the crunching of snow beneath his boots. Suddenly, a chilling howl pierced the air, followed by several others in quick succession. Mark felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew these were not ordinary wolves. Mark quickened his pace, but as he neared the village outskirts, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Silhouetted against the moonlight were the shapes of large wolves, their eyes glowing ominously in the dark. They were standing just outside the tree line, staring directly at him. He hurried to the village square, where a few of the men were already gathered, alerted by the howls. "They're here," Mark panted, the wolves from the elder's stories. The men exchanged uneasy glances, then armed themselves with rifles and torches. They decided to confront the pack before the wolves could venture any closer to the village. As they moved towards the forest edge, the howling intensified, echoing through the trees and sending waves of fear through the group. When they reached the spot where Mark had seen the wolves, they found nothing but tracks in the snow, leading deeper into the woods. Reluctantly, they followed the trail, knowing that turning back would mean leaving their homes unprotected. The forest was dense, the trees towering above them, casting long shadows in the moonlight. The air was filled with the scent of pine and the ever-present cold. Suddenly, the pack emerged from the shadows, surrounding the men. There were at least a dozen of them, larger than any wolves the men had ever seen. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their low growls sent shivers down the spines of the bravest hunters. The men raised their rifles, but before they could fire, the wolves attacked with terrifying speed and coordination. Chaos ensued as the men tried to defend themselves, but it quickly became apparent that these were no ordinary wolves. They moved with an intelligence and ferocity that seemed almost supernatural. In the midst of the struggle, Mark found himself face to face with the largest wolf, its eyes burning into his soul. He raised his rifle, but before he could pull the trigger, the wolf leapt, knocking him to the ground. As he struggled beneath the weight of the beast, he felt its hot breath on his face and its teeth grazing his neck. Just when he thought it was over, a loud, piercing whistle cut through the air. The wolves froze, then slowly retreated, disappearing back into the forest as silently as they had appeared. Mark, gasping for breath, looked up to see Thomas standing at the edge of the clearing, an old hunting horn in his hand. Thomas approached and helped Mark to his feet. "They won't harm you now," he said in a low, trembling voice. "But heed this warning, they are the guardians of this forest, and they will return if ever we forget to respect their territory." The men, battered and shaken, made their way back to the village, the weight of Thomas's words heavy in their hearts. They never spoke of that night to outsiders, but the story was passed down through generations, a grim reminder of the ancient pact between man and nature. To this day, the villagers of that remote northern settlement respect the boundaries of the forest, always mindful of the glowing eyes that watch from the shadows, waiting to remind them of their place in the wild.